Catalan capital Barcelona was the birthplace of X-Trial in 1978, and some 45 years later, tonight the city hosts the opening round of the 2023 World Championship. 9 men are bidding for glory in this most prestigious of X-Trials at the sport's epicentre. Home grounds for many of the competitors and within reach of several major factories. You join us ahead of the second round of competition here in Barcelona. New regulations for 2023 mean the interval's traditional knockout element has been removed, and all 9 on our starting list will be back out onto the arena floor, bidding for one of 3 available places in today's grand final. Their starting order here decided based on their opening runs, and it was Jaime Busto who took top spot, and the first available World Championship bonus point by beating Adam Raga by 1 mark to 3. Tony Bow in third position on 5. And remember, the top 3 on combined scores at the end of this second round will march on to today's grand final. So Tony Bow, who's currently in a 3-way tie with Toby Martin and Gironi Fajardo on that 5-mark tally under some pressure. Benoit Bincaz on 6, Gabriel Marseille on 7, Sondre Hager on 9, all still very much in contention. Matteo Grattarola lagging behind after suffering a couple of unforced errors, you'd have to say, in both sections 2 and 4 in his opening run of the evening. Well, for those of you less familiar with the sport, X-Trial is the ultimate test of balance and nerve. Riders on their own against the course and FIM observer, targeting the lowest possible score of penalty marks awarded every time a rider uses a part of the body, footing or the bike leaning on the section or the floor. The course is broken down into zones, they're known as sections. Each carries a maximum score of 5 marks, which is referred to as a failure, or more colourfully as a fiasco. That'll be awarded if a rider falls or dismounts, exceeds the boundaries of the section, accrues more than 3 marks for any reason, or runs out of time. Remember, as I've been saying, it's the total scores after 2 rounds that will decide the classification for positions 4 to 9. World Championship points, of course, up for grabs in this second round. For the top 3, a place in tonight's grand final, and also that World Championship bonus point available to the top performer in the second round coming up. It's the opening round of a 7-event series that takes in 4 countries. Next month, we head to Austria before returning to Spain with X-Trial Pamplona. X-Trial Bordeaux is the last before a summer break. Then 4 X-Trials scheduled for the start of next winter, with the 2023 season ending on La Réunion in mid-November. There are your 9 competing riders for X-Trial Barcelona. 5 permanent riders, the top 5 from the 2022 World Championship. They are joined by 3 event riders representing different nationalities. And finally, today's wildcard, just coming into shot now with the number 4 on his front. That is Gironi Fajardo, the local representative. Riders appearing on stage there in their seating positions based on their performances in round 1. And a major shock with Tony Bow suffering a failure in section 1 that had previously been completed by Gabriel Marseille, Jaime Busto and Adam Raga. So Bow with a little bit of work to do, but the scores all, to be perfectly honest, very finely balanced. From Jaime Busto, the leader, all the way down to Gabriel Marseille in 7th place, just 6 marks separating them, and we know how quickly 5 marks can be won and lost. Matteo Grattarola, though, has a lot of ground to make up. 10 marks behind the qualification cut-off after his effort in round number 1. We know he is riding through injury. Suffered a training spill and has struggled on his return in pre-season trials at Sheffield and Chambéry, both of which he finished down in 6th position, 6th and last in France, really struggling at the moment. His face heavily scratched and scarred. New machinery to acclimatise to as well for Matteo Grattarola, who makes his debut tonight with Vertigo as their factory number 1. What a spell it's been for him with Beta. Most remarkable turn for the better for Matteo Grattarola. Big step to open round number 2. Exactly the same as it was in the opening round. So if you are just joining us, that was the main stumbling block in each rider's opening run. So Matteo Grattarola now moves on to 20 marks. New regulations for this 2023 season mean that in the second round, There is a minute less on the clock, so speed will be of the essence here. Some of the modules repeated, not this section 2, this is brand new. Section 1 repeated as well. Single mark there for leaning for Matteo Grattarola. Marks for leaning for touching any part of the bike on the section, remember. Marks for footing as those feet touch the ground. Single drop mark in section 2 for Matteo Grattarola. Vertigo section, and the new Vertigo man comes out of it with just a single. Moves on to 21 now, his progressive score. Remember, that's what's going to count in terms of qualification to today's grand final. If he ends on more than 30, he's already out of the reckoning. Section 3 now. Swift work again from Matteo Grattarola. As I said, 1 minute less in the second round. So time is of the essence. Grattarola has wasted none thus far. Rushing his way through. Clean in section 3. First clean in the second round. Into the rocks now. This one new for the second round. So far so good for Matteo Grattarola. 6 marks in round 2, leaving him on 21. Less than 2 minutes now for Matteo Grattarola. Disastrous opening lap for him. He's working his way back into the X-Trial now. Clean in section 4 for Matteo Grattarola. So still the 6 mark score, 21 overall, and boy has he been quick. Matteo Grattarola, the reigning world number 4. Only his 4th X-Trial campaign. Qualified, of course, in 2021. Only his 2nd season at the time, full-time season. Thanks to his world ranking. He's remained in the top 5 in the world since. 2 X-Trial podium finishes for him last season. Looks unlikely that he'll add another here tonight. But Matteo Grattarola, just moments away from completing section 5, and it has been an excellent second run for him. So it's another clean, a hat-trick to complete his second run for Matteo Grattarola, who sits on 6 marks for round number 2, leaving him on 21 for the 2 rounds combined. And that's the score with which he lays the first benchmark down to the riders still to come. That was much more like the Matteo Grattarola that we've come to know in recent seasons. 3rd place here at the Palau San Jordi, his most recent podium. Also had a podium at Nice last season. Just missed out on a medal ranking at Andorra la Vella with a disappointing night. It's been a disappointing night, you would suggest, for Grattarola thus far. 10 marks to make up on the top 3. He's put in a 6-mark second run. At least remains in mathematical contention. Next up will be Sondre Haga of Norway. On his debut for Gas Gas. And it's a stuttering start to round number 2 with a failure in section 1 for Sondre Haga. So Haga finished round 1 with 9 marks, 2 cleans at the end of his first run. A failure in section 1 twice now. Moves on to 14, still 7 marks ahead of Matteo Grattarola as he heads into the new section 2. Permanent rider, of course, in the World Championship in 2022 was Sondre Haga. Only finished 2 points from the top 5 in a tight midfield. Only the top 5 qualifying for 2023. The mark there for footing that has now been given. A little bit of a discussion between the referee and the section observer before it was given. Sondre Haga then through with a single drop mark in section 2. Moves on to 6 for this round, putting him on 15. Now, if he doesn't drop any more marks, he can match Matteo Grattarola's efforts in round 2. Ooh, that's surely going to be a mark for leaning. That is now given. So now only 5 marks up on Grattarola, who had a strong finish to round 2. And Haga needs to try and match him to remain in front of him in the pecking order. Currently 8th after the opening round is Sondre Haga. Off through the final crest without dropping a mark for leaning there. So it'll be just the single mark by my reckoning in section 3. One more than Grattarola though. It moves him on to 16. 5 marks up on Grattarola, 2 sections to come. Section 4. For Sondre Haga, event rider of course tonight on a promoter's pick. The only Norwegian rider. Second out into the sections here. He was third out into the sections in the opening round, courtesy of his world ranking. It was used to determine the starting order. Starting order for round 2, of course, is the based on the classification from round number 1. So Grattarola was clean in section 4 and swift in section 4 as well. You'd have to say Sondre Haga has been more considered. Matteo Grattarola really threw caution to the wind. Sondre Haga, one final step to come. Time elapsing here for him. Takes his time, and it was worth it. Another clean for Sondre Haga, his first of this round. Adds to the 2 cleans he managed at the end of round number 1. So he sits on 7, that's 16 overall. 5 up still on Matteo Grattarola. And unless he drops a 5 here, he will beat Grattarola at X-Trial Barcelona in 2023. Grattarola at the moment, you'd have to say, looking likely to finish in the placement position. Haga launches up. That's going to be a drop mark for leaning. Lands on the sump. 23-year-old Sondre Haga, who, remember, is still a Trial 2 rider in the summer season. Really dedicated, though, to making it at the highest level in X-Trial. Participated in the 4 big pre-season events in 2023. Nicely warmed up before Barcelona. Also been in Barcelona since the start of this year has Sondre Haga. He crosses the line with a single drop mark in section 5, moving him on to 8 marks for round 2 and 17 overall. He does beat Matteo Grattarola, but he's 12 marks back from the qualification cut-off for the top 3. And in what's been a low-scoring course so far in the second round, looks unlikely that we'll see Sondre Haga participate any further tonight. The rest of the field, though, are incredibly close. Gabriel Marseille, third out through the sections, was only 7th in round 1. Suffered a really difficult start. He is carrying a right knee injury, and he looked to be in some discomfort right from the first step of section 1. He made it through that section 1, but then inexplicably failed section 2, and that's what's left him on 7 marks. Nonetheless, he bounced back, change of machinery, 3 more sections, he cleaned them all, and so he is only 2 marks away from Tony Bow in 3rd position. His Repsol Montesa Honda teammate, of course. Marseille with every chance still of qualifying to today's grand final. He starts strong. One of only 3 riders to complete section 1 in the opening round, and he's got off to a good start in round 2. Section 1 is easier, incidentally, in this second round. Riders are now free to use any of the modules that they wish. They are not obliged to make it up this top step. They can prefer an alternative route, using those modules to the left of steps. Gabriel Marseille has elected not to do so. He moves on to 2 marks. 2 marks then for Gabriel Marseille in section 1. Became the first rider to make it through that section in round 1. He does the same again in round 2. Section 2 next up. Single mark dropped by both Grattarola and Haga here. First 2 riders through it. Now, by making it all the way to the end of section 1, of course, Marseille's cost himself a lot on time, so he is going to have to rush here. New regulations for 2023, only 4 minutes per rider in round 2. Hence the level of difficulty being slightly easier. Give the chance to make it through and to show their dexterity and agility, these riders, under time pressure. Swift in section 2, Marseille through clean. First rider clean through there. What a benchmark Marseille looks set to raise. 9 marks as things stand in total. Leaps through to the finish. Avoids risking a mark for leaning. by not getting that sump anywhere near the crest of that final block. He's told there by his assistant, watch out for the sump. As he embarks now on section 4. 2 riders being clean through here thus far. 7 marks in round 1 for Gabriel Marcelli. Only 2 marks in round 2 thus far. Plenty of advice here being given by his assistant on how to use the rocks. Help him propel himself forward. Gabriel Marcelli with the final step of section 4, cleaned by Matteo Grattarola and Sondre Haga. Gabriel Marcelli, the first of the main contenders you fancy for a place in today's grand final. And looking good, despite his injury. He's looked much better actually in the second round in terms of that injury than he did in his first outing. And excellent in section 4. And with over a minute now on the clock to tackle section 5, Marcelli shaping up really nicely in this second round of X-Trial Barcelona. Still 9 marks for the 2 laps combined. 1 minute to go. Gabriel Marcelli in his second season as a Repsol Honda trial team rider, making it through the Montesa Honda section and hoping that he can celebrate something here. Very nasty crash he had in Toulouse 2 weeks ago. Done some damage to his right knee. Hurts him in particular on those more explosive sections. But in round number 2, you wouldn't believe he was riding through the pain barrier. That is an excellent performance. Just 2 marks to his name. 9 his total from 10 sections. And 31 seconds banked as well in round 2, with a chance at least of taking a World Championship point if he can top this second round. So excellent performance there from Gabriel Marcelli. Just those 2 drop marks in section 1. Both for sump stops, the first step of the section. But that had cost Matteo Grattarola and Sondre Haga a 5, so he won't be too sore about that. And then another one later on in the section. From there he was clean, 4 in a row. Gabriel Marcelli also had 3 cleans in round number 1. Completes the opening 2 rounds on 9. So it's 9 marks for Gabriel Marcelli, 17 for Sondre Haga, 21 for Matteo Grattarola, who's staring the exit door in the face. Benoit Bincaz on 6 thus far. To remain ahead of Gabriel Marcelli, 2 is what he can afford to score. If he drops 3, the pair would be tied on 9. Marcelli would get it. The second round is what counts in the case of a tiebreak at the end of this second round. Just an interview here taking place with Gabriel Marcelli over the public address system, which is what's holding up Benoit Bincaz here. He will be next up in round number 2. Benoit Bincaz then in his first World Championship appearance for Sherco. 2-year deal for him with the manufacturer, signed this winter. Homecoming for him. He was a Sherco rider during his youth and junior career. Made his X-Trial debut with Scorpa brand in 2017, of course. Looks like a little bit of nerves as he tries to clear his mind here. Benoit Bincaz, who's been inconsistent in pre-season. Had a tough night out in Toulouse a fortnight ago. Bounced back with a couple of 3rd places in Chambéry last weekend to set himself up for his first appearance of 2023. Benoit Bincaz only a mark behind the qualification positions after round number 1. 5 sections to go in round 2, and not much of a room for error, at risk of dropping behind Gabriel Marcelli. And there it is. 5 marks for Benoit Bincaz in section 1, and he is already behind Gabriel Marcelli. Marcelli moves up 1 place closer towards qualification. Bincaz 5 moves on to 11. Marcelli leads on 9. And now Bincaz's target has got to be to try and remain ahead of Sondre Haga, who finished on 17. 6 marks up on that is Benoit Bincaz. As we move now into section 2, it's a new one. Section 2 cleaned by Gabriel Marcelli, Matteo Grattarola and Sondre Haga both dropped a single mark here. Precision required from here on in for Benoit Bincaz. That section 1 costing him in the opening round as well. He only dropped one further mark after that. That could be the difference between those who make it to today's grand final and those who don't. Swift work there in section 2. The early failure in section 1 means he's got 3 minutes for 3 sections now. Back on an even keel, as it were. And shorter sections from here. Bincaz shouldn't be overly troubled by the time element, as he races through in section 3. Another rider clean through that one. Only Sondre Haga took a mark through there, got himself into some difficulty. Benoit Bincaz then remains a mark ahead of where Matteo Grattarola was at the same stage of this second round. And obviously Bincaz carried an advantage with him over Grattarola into round 2. Still on 11 marks overall is Benoit Bincaz. Only French rider in the field, of course, a former world number 4. Suffered that, fractured his back in 2021. Or in 2020, I should say, missed 2021. 8th and last of the series regulars last season, so he was second out through the sections in round 1. And he looks as though he's going to be able to improve his stock further here. He was 6th in the opening run. 3 cleans in a row now for Benoit Bincaz. A hat-trick. 11 marks still his score. 2 down on Gabriel Marseille. That difference all coming back and stemming back to section 1, where Marseille's been able to make the difference. Low level of difficulty, but a high level of velocity required in round 2, and that is going to be a signature of this season. Organisers were keen that round 2 should be all about speed. They're tested in different ways, these riders, in the X-Trial World Championship. More strong work from Benoit Bincaz. A minute left in section 5 now. Clean by Matteo Grattarola and Gabriel Marseille. 2 modules still to come. Bincaz looking set to slot in second behind Marseille. Obviously with 5 riders still to come, but provisionally inside the qualification places. Matteo Grattarola is not going to be through to the final. That is now certain. Everything else still very much up in the air, particularly for Bincaz and Marseille, who will have to wait on the remaining results. Competitive scores though: Marseille 9, Bincaz 11. As Benoit Bincaz then makes his way down to the arena floor and waves to the crowd, an opportunity to take a look back at his second round performance, as Gironi Fajardo, his Sherco teammate, limbers up to embark on his round 2 effort. Gironi Fajardo finished round 1 on 5 marks, the same score as Toby Martin and Tony Bowe. So big pressure on those 3 riders who were all square. And remember that Gabriel Marseille certainly brought himself back into the hunt now. If any of Fajardo, Martin or Bowe fail section 1, and remember Fajardo failed this opening step, he was the first rider out through it in the opening round. If Fajardo fails it, he'll drop behind Marseille in the pecking order. This could be vital. Right at the start of the second round, a crucial moment for Gironi Fajardo. He gives it his best shot, but the assistant has to catch the front wheel. Fajardo is down to a 5. That moves him on to 10. Only a mark now ahead of Benoit Bincaz, as he was at the end of the opening lap. Bincaz heaping the pressure on with 4 cleans. But Gironi Fajardo drops behind Gabriel Marseille, who still leads after round 2 on 9 marks. Fajardo on 10. Bincaz finished on 11. Haga finished on 17. Grattarola finished on 21. Still 4 more riders to come after Gironi Fajardo. 37-year-old veteran missed the 2022 X-Trial World Championship campaign. Only finished 7th overall in 2021, so dropped out of the series. Last year, the first time he had missed a whole X-Trial season since his debut, and that was all the way back in 2005. That year, he was on the podium here in Barcelona, and he took his only X-Trial win to date at X-Trial Buenos Aires in Argentina. 3 times world number 3, Gironi Fajardo through swiftly in section 2. It's about remaining error-free from here on in. Only those odd unforced errors, those little dabs from Matteo Grattarola in section 2, from Sondre Hager in sections 2, 3 and 5. But the rest of the sections from section 2 onwards have been completed clean by everyone. Mistake from Gironi Fajardo. He's slipping down. He tries to save the back wheel and he's done so. Brilliant from Gironi Fajardo. Staring disaster in the face. From the jaws of defeat, Gironi Fajardo pulls out a clean in section 3. That's a great ride, because that could easily have spelled disaster for his qualification hopes. Fajardo remains on 10, remains in the hunt. 2 to go. But the warning signs were there. Anytime you try to rush, there is a risk of a failure that could be costly. Back tyre was slipping away from him and Fajardo manages to save it. Good ride. Section 4 now. Again, he needs a clean. Any drop marks, and he will drop behind Benoit Bincaz in the pecking order. Clean so far in section 4, penultimate section of the second round. Gironi Fajardo is through. Another clean, and he needs to finish with another. This is for position, remember. And if he or Bincaz don't make it through to the grand final, then it's for World Championship points as well. Important there to land without hitting the sump. It's clean still. Gironi Fajardo working hard here. 1 minute 20 still on the clock. Needs to do it all on the back tyre. Avoid taking any marks for leaning. It's looking good. Gironi Fajardo, with 4 cleans in succession, remains ahead of Benoit Bincaz. He's second as things stand, still with mathematical hopes of making it through to today's grand final. Marseille leads on 9. Fajardo second on 10. Bincaz third on 11. That knocks Sondre Hager out of the top 3. Matteo Grattarola will be going home after round 2 as well. Fajardo delighted with that performance. The difference between him and Gabriel Marseille, that's section 1. The opener to the first section of this round 2 looks like being decisive, because the rest has been a low level of difficulty for riders of this level, of course. 4 still to come. Toby Martin, like Gironi Fajardo, finished round 1 on 5 marks. Tony Bow finished on 5 marks as well. Making it up this step at the start of section 1 would be a great way for Martin to improve his chances of making it through to the grand final. 8th in his 2 previous visits to Barcelona, the 22-year-old Brit Toby Martin. Big moment for his X-Trial, but he is down. 5 mark score for Martin, and that's another position gained by Gabriel Marseille. Martin on to 10. Same score as Gironi Fajardo. Marseille still leads. Into section 2 now for Toby Martin. As I said, 10 marks his score, so if he drops anything more, he will not only drop behind Gironi Fajardo, but could put himself in danger of being passed by Benoit Bincaz as well. Single mark would move him on to 6 for the run. That would be 11, and of course Bincaz would have the advantage, his superior performance in round 2. So Martin, desperate here to pull something off. He is clean in section 2, 5 marks. 3 minutes, he's told, by Alex Wigg, his assistant. Brilliant work there from Martin. Gironi Fajardo, remember, finished very swiftly. 2 minutes 50.1 was his time. If we have a tie-break in this second round between Fajardo and Martin on 5 and 10, then it's going to be the performance in the second round, and that could be determined by time if there is a situation where 2 riders completely equal. Martin still clean in section 3. He needs to stay that way. 4 riders have been clean. Matteo Grattarola, Gabriel Marseille, Benoit Bincaz and Gironi Fajardo. Martin now in his 4th X-Trial season. Series regular in each of the last 2. Britain's lone representative in 2023. Was 6th overall last year. Podium finisher in X-Trial Chalon-sur-Saône, looking to get back in the final. And onto that rostrum. And it's good work again in section 3. So now section 4. So now into section 5 for Toby Martin. 3 cleans in a row, still on those 10 marks. Any dropped marks here? Will drop behind Benoit Bincaz. Oh, it's close, and it is a drop mark for Toby Martin. And Martin tumbles behind Fajardo, tumbles behind Bincaz, and out of the contention for a place in the grand final. Toby Martin's night in Barcelona will end after this section. He will finish ahead of Sondre Haga, he will finish ahead of Matteo Grattarola, but he cannot now qualify to the grand final. Final step to come for Martin. He's through. He'll be furious with himself there. Toby Martin finishes in 2 minutes 54.9, so he was beaten on time by Gironi Fajardo anyway. But he will have been frustrated to drop that mark that drops him behind Benoit Bincaz. 6 for round 2, his score on 11 overall. Bincaz will get that position on tie-break, courtesy of his superior performance in the second round. Bincaz finished the run on 5. Martin finished it on 6. That errant dab in section 5 proving decisive. So a new look at your leaderboard then. Gabriel Marseille finishes round 2 on a total of 9. Gironi Fajardo sits on 10. Benoit Bincaz remains in the qualification zone, but only just on 11, with Toby Martin also on 11, but outside of that qualification cutoff. 3 riders still to come. Tony Bow sits on 5, Adam Raga on 3, Jaime Busto on 1. And Jaime Busto is your World Championship leader on a single championship point as well. Gironi Fajardo just explaining that he was glad to be back in 2023, having had to watch last season's from home. Last season's Extra Barcelona, I should say, from home. He is back in the Palau Sant Jordi, and as he said, he enjoys being here and giving something of a show to the crowd. So, 3 men, the top 3 in last year's World Championship, still to come in round number 2. Tony Bow currently on 5. If he wants to confirm his place in the grand final, without needing to wait on the results of Adam Raga and Jaime Busto, he can afford a maximum of 3 dropped marks in these 5 sections. He's going to have to start strong in section 1. Tony Bow failed section 1 in the opening round. He needs to get through it this time. 16 times world champion. It's a low-scoring X-Trial tonight in Barcelona, and that makes it a risk. He could be even under threat of not making it to the grand final in the Palau Sant Jordi. That would be a massive shock at the start of this season. Tony Bow, crucial section 1, probably the biggest moment of the run for him. Bow is up. He lands it on the sump. It's a single drop mark, but that's exactly what he needed. 6 marks now, his total score. Tony Bow, crucial start to his second outing. Tony Bow, he's going to take the alternative route. I was surprised when Gabriel Marseille didn't. He preferred to make the big step. Tony Bow is doing it the more technical way. It's a slightly longer route. It's an extra module, but it removes the danger of a mark for leaning midway through the section. Tony Bow then taking what I expected to be the route of choice in this second round. And he gains another mark on Gabriel Marseille as a result. Tony Bow then, now on 6 marks. Gabriel Marseille finished his first 2 rounds on 9. Tony Bow, bidding to become the first rider to book his place in today's grand final, really needs to remain error-free from here on in. Excellent start in section 1, makes up for his disappointment in round 1, his only drop marks of that opening round. And Tony Bow is clean in section 2. Wow, the margins are so small. So small in this second round, and the slightest of errors, one failure, and Bow is almost certainly eliminated. Brilliant performance in section 3 again. Swift as well. 3 and 4 have been the easiest of this second round. Bow remains on 1 for round 2. Remember, there is a World Championship point for the top performer in the second round as well. Gabriel Marseille with 2 has set the benchmark thus far. Beau's got to be careful not to drop a mark for leaning there. Jagged edges on those rocks are a real risk for the sump. Tony Beau with no such problems thus far.
2 minutes.
2 minutes still remaining for the exit of section 4. Tony Beau is clean. 6 marks. 1 section still to come. A failure here, remember, would move him on to 11. Same score as Toby Martin. And that would knock him out. Benoit Bincaz would move in front. If Beau scores 2 marks or better, he is through to today's grand final. But that shows you what a small margin there is between success and failure. A 5 and Beau is out. A 2 or better. And Tony Beau books his place in today's grand final with 2 riders to spare. A clean in section 5. That excellent performance in section 1. Best of anyone so far. Leaves him on a single mark for round 2. 6 his total. He's beaten Gabriel Marseille by 3 marks. And that assures him of his place in the top 3. Beau is back on the podium. His 100th X-Trial appearance. It will be his 88th career podium. But could it be yet another victory? That remains to be seen. We'll find out in the grand final. Tony Beau, the first rider to book his place here in the Palau Sant Jordi. That puts the pressure on the 2 men still to come, Adam Raga and Jaime Busto. Raga had a 4-mark advantage over Gabriel Marseille after the opening round. Adam Raga, who dropped 2 marks in section 3, was the worst performer actually of that section in round 1, just an unforced error. But he was excellent in section 1 in the opening round with just that single drop mark. He needs to replicate that here. A 5-mark score would drop him back in towards the path of Gabriel Marseille. He's got a little bit more wriggle room than Tony Beau, that's for sure. Oh no! Disaster for Adam Raga in section 1. Having completed that successfully at the first attempt in the opening round, Adam Raga becomes the 6th rider to fail section 1 in round 2, moves on to 8 marks, and now only has a single mark advantage over Gabriel Marseille. The pressure is really on for Raga. 40-year-old veteran, has been there and done it all before, has been on every single X-Trial podium since dropping out of the top 3 at X-Trial Sheffield in 2014. 43 podiums in a row for Adam Raga, and if he wants to make it 44, he's got very, very little room for error now. 8 marks his progressive total. Gabriel Marseille finished round 2 on a total of 9. Tony Beau will lead round 2 as well in pursuit of that World Championship point, with Jaime Busto still to come. Adam Raga with another drop mark, crucially. The left foot goes down. And that moves him onto a 9-mark score. And he will be beaten by Gabriel Marseille. And Adam Raga could well find himself eliminated from X-Trial Barcelona before the grand final. And that could be the shock of the night. 6 marks in round 2, 9 marks now his progressive score. Gabriel Marseille on tiebreak would qualify at Raga's expense. And Raga is going to have to rely on errors now from Jaime Busto. Major, major shocks here in the Palau Sant Jordi. Any further drop marks really would be game over for Adam Raga. Another drop mark and he'd slip behind Gironi Fajardo as well. Clean from here on in is essential. Low scoring trial, those odd dabs, you just can't afford them. Raga at a crucial juncture in the night failed that section 1, and that single mark in section 2 could cost him his place in the grand final. And his podium run. Through section 4, that's good enough. Good on time as well, 1 minute 47 to complete this section 5. But Adam Raga could not afford that dab in section 2. Big hit there in the section for Adam Raga. 1 step still to come. clean in section 5, so 3 cleans in a row for him. He finishes round number 2 on 6 marks. He ties with Gabriel Marseille on 9, but he slips behind him courtesy of the results in round 2, which is the tiebreak under 2023 regulations. So your new pecking order. Tony Bowe leads it on 6. He's confirmed his place in the grand final. Gabriel Marseille will also be on the podium tonight. He's through inside the top 3, and Adam Raga is provisionally 3rd. But he needs Jaime Busto to drop 8 marks or more here in round number 2. Busto with an opportunity to dump Adam Raga out of X-Trial Barcelona and off the podium altogether. And what a story that would be at the start of this season. Jaime Busto, single drop mark in the opening round, leads your World Championship. Oh, that's a bad start for Busto. 5 marks in section 1, he moves on to 6. Only 3 marks now to play with against Raga. Adam Raga, who sits in 4th position at the moment. Marseille and Raga straddling the qualification cut-off on 9 apiece. Into section 2 for Jaime Busto. On 6 marks. 3, and he's out. Maximum of 2 to play with from here on in. This is where Busto's temperament will be called into question. So many times down the years, we've talked about his lack of consistency, how he can occasionally struggle under pressure. This is time for him to prove that he's a different man on his return to Gas. Clean in section 2 for Jaime Busto. 6, his progressive score. So far so good for Jaime Busto. 3 years away with vertigo. He returns to Gas tonight, adding to his 2 previous seasons in the X-Trial World Championship with Gas. Another clean in section 3. He's edging closer towards dumping Adam Raga out of X-Trial Barcelona. Stakes couldn't be much higher now. A place on the podium, a place in the grand final up for grabs for your current World Championship leader, Jaime Busto. 2 sections to come. Section 4. Still only 2 marks to play with. Any more than that, and he's eliminated. 25-year-old Jaime Busto. Twice an X-Trial winner, of course. 9 X-Trial World Championship podiums, as well as those FIM medals. 4 times world number 3. Hoping to go better this year, and beating Adam Raga tonight would be a crucial step towards it. Clean again in section 4, so it's all going to go down to a decider in section 5. Last section of the second round. Jaime Busto, if he scores 2 marks here or better, he is through to the final. Jaime Busto, so far so good. Has beaten Adam Raga in 2 of their 3 matchups in pre-season, non-championship X-Trials. Raga only beat him by a single point in the other. Jaime Busto's had the edge on Raga in pre-season. He's had the edge on him at X-Trial Barcelona. Jaime Busto is through to the grand final alongside the Repsol Montesa Honda duo, and Adam Raga's run inside those podium positions comes to an end at 43. First time since X-Trial Sheffield in 2014 that Adam Raga has not made the podium in an X-Trial World Championship event. First major shock of this 2023 campaign. Jaime Busto supreme, never looked in doubt after his section 1 wobble. Failure there, but otherwise clean throughout. He finishes the run on 5 marks, which is enough to put him in 3rd position behind Tony Bowe and Gabriel Marseille for round 2. And Marseille climbs all the way from 7th and moves his way up into the qualification positions, the top 3. Adam Raga only 6th in round 2, and that sees him eliminated from X-Trial Barcelona. Tony Bowe wins round 2. That gives him a World Championship point, so it's now 1 apiece between Jaime Busto, the winner of round 1, and Tony Bowe, the winner of round 2. Busto and Bo will meet again in the grand final, and Gabriel Marseille will join them. And what a supreme performance that is from him, given that Marseille looked in extreme discomfort after the opening section, after the opening 2 sections. In fact, all the way through that opening round, he was shaking his leg in some discomfort. He's come out punching in round 2. There is your pecking order. The top 3 march on, the rest go home. Adam Raga is off the podium. 43 consecutive podiums for Adam Raga. This only the 21st time in 143 appearances that Adam Raga has not qualified inside the top 3. Gironi Fajardo takes 5th ahead of Benoit Bincaz, Toby Martin, Sondre Haga and Matteo Grattarola. And your 3 men to progress to the final will be Gabriel Marseille on 9, Jaime Busto on 6 and Tony Bow on 6. And Tony Bow will have the advantageous last starting position for Section 1, courtesy of his superior performance in round 2.